Hi, welcome to the bathtub. You know me. This is the old masturbator, Scott Bradfield. This is the old masturbator's T-shirt. International Bathing Alliance. Got to remember all the news here. There's so much happening here at the bathtub over the years. I kind of forget all the important things happening. One of them is we have something I haven't mentioned for a while, the International Bathing Alliance, which is free to anybody who wants to join it. It's to bring our perilously broken up old planet together. We're trying to bring everybody together into one useless metaphoric bathtub. All you need to do is give me a moniker, you want to call yourself whatever you want to call yourself, and give me a location, and I put you on a Google map. And if you want, I think I even have it. See here, I may have thrown it away. I have, here it is. We work hard to make this look like we don't spend any time on it. It's not easy to do. If you want, I'll even send you a certificate of bathing excellence. Look at how well we take care of ours. It's that's for Boris Johnson. He's an idiot. We got him. We joined him in the bathtub. I made him my bathing buddy. You can have, the whole story here. You can either join yourself and make yourself a proud member of the International Bathing Alliance, or you can select a bathing buddy, and you can even do both because it's free. We give it to everybody. Any idiot can get that stupid certificate. I'll send it to you in e-format. You got to print it yourself. I'm not going to print anything for you. And I put you on a Google map. And you can see that map because we have an Ultimate Beginners Facebook page, which we're slowly moving away from Facebook, like many people in this country. But for now, you can see that there. Just don't buy anything through Facebook, and we'll be happy. We're going to Blue Sky as we go to Blue Sky. We're at Blue Sky at the moment. Lots of things happening here at the bathtub. This episode is brought to you by AWKMA. Amazon and the Washington Post can kiss my ass. This was born many years ago. It's a shadowy, nebulous organization that operates at the periphery of our understanding. It's like a Pynchonian conspiracy. We don't know who they are, or if they really exist, or if we've invented them. But for some reason, they hate the Washington Post and Amazon. And we're always looking for ways to not buy books from Amazon. So we're going to be talking about a really terrific book today, which you should buy. I don't normally recommend you go out and buy some books, but I think I will recommend today's book for you. And bookshop.org and betterworldbooks.com and bookshop.org. We prefer them to the organizations that should remain nameless. And what else? There's lots happening. Before I get to our book, which is, by the way, we're taking a long time, Cormac McCarthy's The Passenger. We're going to be talking about that today. This is also the self-flogging. We're moving into don't forget, this is the Bathing with a Vengeance period, the final episode of the bathtub. We're going to take this Bathing with a Vengeance straight off into the collapse of our planet and our democracy. And no matter how horrible things get, we're always going to find time to read a decent book in the bathtub, because there's no point in having a democracy or having a planet to live on if you can't spend a little time in the bathtub reading something you like. It's a self-promotion period too. A lot of things happening here. And I'm selling my own books. You can buy them at a nameless place I don't like. But if you want to buy them from me directly, I sell them $12 a piece, signed, postage. Just basically, I want them out of the house. And I give you free PDFs. If you want a PDF of anything I've written, including our Reading Great Books in the Bathtub book. This is today's self-flogging promotion. 3 paragraphs in the life of Bob Johnson, a novel in 303-paragraph stories. We wrote this during the first Trump administration to keep ourselves from going insane. And I have the feeling Bob's starting to... I'm getting weird messages from Bob, and I think Bob may be back with us soon. And don't forget, Animal Planet. I'm reading that for free on... it's called Substack. Really new to me. Substack. Okay, we've been reading through Cormac McCarthy for several years now. When we heard that he had his final 2 novels coming out, which they've now come out a couple of years ago, My Plant, 2022. And I think we started reading his books from beginning to end so that we could catch up and finally read these last 2 novels that came out. They're kind of it's a brother-sister combination of 2 novels. It's... They were published in 2022, and maybe the second one may have been a few months after that. And I wanted to read everything of his and then read the 2 new novels. I finally read The Passenger. I read it over a few days. Most McCarthy books I read pretty quickly. I don't. They somehow get me. Get hooked. It's not like a Don DeLillo novel where I start off thinking this is great, and then I have to really basically drag my ass through every page after that. I'm pretty much caught up by McCarthy's stories, and I'm going to say a few things about this. The first thing is Pure Mountain Water, unpixelated. We're going to the post-tech period. I really enjoyed it. So I do think this is one of his better novels. Sometimes you think when the writers near the end of their career, and he puts together a really big kind of, it's sort of a big book for him. They sometimes are failures. They sometimes fall apart, or the writer's trying too hard to do something good. This feels perfectly effortless. It's a little unusual for a McCarthy novel, which I'll talk about in a bit, but it's an excellent piece of prose writing. Nobody writes like about the end of times like Cormac McCarthy. He is the poet of the end of times. So when you're living in a period when it feels like the end of times, he's almost it's almost comforting to know that somebody can make something beautiful out of all the horrors and the impending horrors of basically a complete collapse of life on Earth. And that's what he writes about. So there's two novels. This is the first one. It has a sort of thriller premise to it. I'm not going to say too much about the plot, except that it starts off with a guy named Western who's called out to look at a plane. It's in 1980 in Mississippi. It's set all over the South. He travels all over the South. And it's set in 1980. And he and a friend go down to dive and find this small passenger plane. It's only it's a very smallish one. It's underwater, and they go and investigate. As you know, whenever McCarthy describes men doing physical things and physical work, he always knows what they're doing. I don't know what they're doing, but you believe he's put you right in that water, right down there in this plane. They go through the plane. They realize that someone was in the plane and got out. So that's why it's called the passenger. Who was in the plane and who disappeared from the plane. And they try to get the flight recorder, and then they leave. And it starts off, it's a little bit like No Country for Old Men, when that central character finds the end of a drug deal that's gone bad and everyone's dead. Do you remember that story starts off? It's sort of like that beginning. And you sort of think, uh-oh, this guy's going to be in a world of pain, kind of like The Counselor or No Country for Old Men. And there's somebody out there who want to get him. Okay, so that's the sort of setup for it. The rest of the book is very episodic. It travels through the life of this man. He's traveling around, seeing his friends, long conversations with friends of his who are just as bright and kind of smart and kind of funny as he is. We learn that he was a physicist, and his father was a physicist who worked on the atomic bomb project with Teller and Oppenheimer. He was supposed to be some genius of some sort. And at the same time, this guy Weston, is his name Weston, he has a sister who he is in love with. That's all we really know about it. Whether he just basically he loved his sister, and his sister and him had this really passionate relationship. I don't know that it was consummated. I don't know if they actually they were sleeping together, but it suggested they might have been or could have. And his sister was this woman who had a young girl who's supposed to be a super genius, and she had schizophrenia. And so some of the passages in this book are his cutting back and forth between Weston and his kind of down-to-earth, realistic, physical sense of the world, and his sister, whose name I forget already, who has these fantasies of being surrounded by one guy's called the thalidomide kid. You know what happens with thalidomide children. He has flippers, and then lots of kind of people who have basically mutations from the horrible horrors of nuclear bombs and also of just this horrific kind of nightmarish world of hers. And you get the feeling they're all kind of these imaginary creatures were creatures that could have come out of Nagasaki or Hiroshima. Okay, I'm not going to talk too much more about it as far as the plot. I want to read a few passages. The book does not turn into I'm going to spoiler a little bit. It doesn't turn into a thriller so much as this man trying to get away from these unseen monsters. That's sort of a story. That's sort of every Cormac McCarthy novel. They're in a world of shit and pain and horror, and they're trying to avoid the horror that's coming at them. right? There's those three cowboys in Outer Dark at the very beginning who are out there trying to kill everybody, or there's the judge in Blood Meridian who's coming after the kid. There's always some monster coming out there to get you. And the way this guy goes through his life and meets all these people, has these conversations. He had conversations about. There's one section about physics and nuclear bombs and how they're and what problems of physics. There's a whole thing about the Kennedy assassination and the mafia. Death, of course, is discussed constantly, and it's just beautifully written. And I just kept finding myself writing down passages. I've quoted a few on my Blue Sky page, but I wanted to give you a few passages just to describe what's going on. Okay, just 2 or 3 passages. This is where the girl, I forget the girl's name now, his sister, and it's one of her earliest fantasies where she's having this sort of schizophrenic experience with this kid, these kind of mutant creatures come surrounding her and are following her around, and it's known very early that she's killed herself before the main events of this book have started. She's already killed herself, and this is one of her fantasies. And thalidomide kid, he turned and eyed her and then continued to pace. He paid no attention to the other entities. A matched pair of dwarves in little suits with purple cravats and Homburg hats. An aging lady in pancake makeup smeared with rouge. Antique dress of black voile, graying lace at throat and cuffs. About her neck she wore a stole assembled out of dead stoats, flat as roadkill with black glass eyes and brocade noses. She raised a jeweled lorgnette to her eye and peered at the girl from behind her ratty veil. Other figures in the background. A rattle of chains in the far corner of the room where a pair of leashed animals of uncertain taxon rose and circled and lay down again. A light rustling, a cough, as in a theater when the house lights dim. She clutched the covers up under her chin. "Who are you?" she said. Almost every passage of this book is incredibly well written. What else have we got here? There's so many passages that I really loved in this book. This is when Weston is actually recalling his sister, and again he's lived on many years after she's been dead. In his dreams of her, she wore at times a smile he tried to remember, and she would say to him almost in a chant words he could scarcely follow. He knew that her lovely face would soon exist nowhere save in his memories and in his dreams, and soon after that nowhere at all. She came in half-nude, trailing sarcenet, or perhaps just her Grecian sheeting crossing a stone stage in the smoking footlamps, or she would push back the cowl of her robe and her blonde hair would fall about her face as she bent to him where he lay in the damp and clammy sheets and whispered to him, "I'd have been your shadow lane, the keeper of that house alone wherein your soul is safe." And all the while a clangor like the labor of a foundry and dark figures in silhouette about the alchemic fires, the ash and the smoke. The floor lay littered with the stillborn forms of their efforts, and still they labored on the raw, half-sentient mud, quivering red in the autoclave. It's really basically this Boschian nightmare of hell through which this man travels and meets his friends and has drinks and has nice conversations with them. if that makes sense as far as what's happening in the book. The horrors of Hiroshima and Nagasaki are also discussed and described as this kind of, again, the beginning of this end of the world, this end of times that this Western character is going through. And again, his name Western is not a mistake. It's not an accident either. He talks about, there's a section where he has a lawyer. It finds out that somebody like an FBI or some sort of Secret Service type agency is trying to come get him because he knows about this plane and whatever secret was on it. And he hires some lawyer and he goes off and kind of disappears in the world and goes to these really, there's long episodes where he goes and lives in a shack and he lives in these kind of out of the way places in his daily life, just beautifully rendered by him. And at one point, his lawyer, who's used to, is almost as paranoid as he is, he says that they're going to come. They're going to come for your identity. They can come for not just your life and who you are and your physicality, but they're going to come for your identity. He said, you might think that fingerprints and numbers give you a distinct identity, but soon there will be no identity so distinct as simply to have none. The truth is that everyone is under arrest or soon will be. They don't have to restrict your movements. They just have to know where you are. It sounds like paranoia to me, Weston says. And the guy says, it is paranoia. We're living in a world that is totally paranoid. I don't want to say too much more. There's so many passages I could read that I really enjoyed, but this is really worth reading. It's a book I would recommend to go buy if you did like McCarthy and you didn't get around to it. I was a little hesitant. I was, again, as I said, when writers have this big last book before they die, they're not necessarily very good. But this one's quite good, and I'm going to read Stella Maris soon, and then we'll have completely done the McCarthy canon, and we'll try to talk a little bit more about him. But The Passenger, Cormac McCarthy, it's a hell yeah in any lifetime, and it's particularly trenchant. It's particularly poignant in the life we're living today. Stay safe. Bye. Okay, now the masturbator is belching. Okay.